Thank you for being here on the ECKO Effect. I'm Ellen Kolodziej, and we are tackling such an important topic in this country today. It is a national crisis. It truly is an epidemic. We are talking about gambling, and not just any gambling. This is not your father's gambling. You know, that sounds cliche, but this is not gambling walking into a casino or a racetrack. We're talking about gambling that is way too easy. On your phone or on your computer, online gambling. It's ubiquitous. It really is everywhere. And it's a true mental health crisis. It's not just money that you're losing or declaring bankruptcy. It is a true mental health crisis in this country. And we have two leaders in this industry leading the way, trying to just make changes, comprehensive changes in our country. And we are so blessed to have these two gentlemen with us today because they are very busy, because they are really making changes in this country. Because I can't stress enough, it's an epidemic. Harry Levant, I'm going to make sure I say your name right, Harry Levant and Mark Gottlieb. These guys are national experts. They've been on CBS News. They've been on 60 Minutes. So I can't even begin to give their credentials. So I'm going to let them do it. First of all, guys, thank you for being here. Harry, tell us some of your background, because I can't even do it justice.
Ellen, thanks for having Mark and myself on the broadcast. I am privileged to serve as the Director of Gambling Policy at the Public Health Advocacy Institute, affiliated with Northeastern University School of Law in Boston, where my friend and colleague Mark Gottlieb is our Executive Director, and PHAI was founded by our friend and mentor, Professor Richard Daynard, who continues to lead us. In addition to wearing that hat, most folks know I am also a gambling addict in recovery. I made my last bet on April 27th, 2014. And I'm also an internationally certified gambling addiction therapist. So I wear 3 different hats. But in this particular space, I am privileged to work with Mark and Professor Daynard, and we are leading the comprehensive movement to bring public health regulation to the out-of-control online gambling industry.
And it is out of control. And Mark?
Yeah, Mark Gottlieb. I'm the Executive Director, as Harry just mentioned. It's so great to be with you, of the Public Health Advocacy Institute at the law school here at Northeastern University. And I've been here for decades, fighting for most of that time against big tobacco. And part of what I've been doing in my legal and policy advocacy has been using litigation as a tool for public health and policy change. And for the last about 5 years, as it's become more and more apparent to me and my colleagues here that online gambling is not only a mental health crisis, but beyond that, also a public health crisis that is rapidly emerging and becoming an epidemic. We've really focused on trying to slow this down a little bit because it's just been an explosion of growth. And there is going to be a cause and an effect. And the effect is widespread addiction, loss of not just money, family connections, self-esteem, autonomy, particularly around young men, really teenagers. But ultimately, these platforms are supposed to be used by those 21 and older. Younger people do get access to them because the age gating is not terribly effective. But these are very vulnerable folks and have been targeted by hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising and marketing by the likes of DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars and BetMGM and even ESPN.
It's everywhere. I have to interrupt for a minute. I mean, it is everywhere. And it's so accepted, this gambling advertising, right? You can't order something on Uber Eats or anywhere, anywhere to order food without saying you get a $10 parlay. It is everywhere. And it is the last bastion really of acceptance in terms of an accepted vice. And when you say young men, it is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. My son just graduated from college. Every one of his friends gambles. Every one of his friends is knee deep in owing people money. I mean, he knows a guy who owed $60,000 and had to drop out of college. I mean, this is crazy how much these young men, right, 18 to 24, and I know you'll both touch on this, how invested they are and how entrenched they are. I mean, I'll just give you a quick story. I was at a Phillies game a few weeks ago, and I was sitting next to a kid, and I asked him how old he was. I'm a reporter, so I talked to everybody. He had a bet on the Phillies game. Now, when I think of gambling, sports betting, I think of football or basketball. He had a bet on the Phillies game. And I said, really? What? You're betting on the Phillies game? He goes, oh, it's just $10, $20. I'll be okay, miss. And I said, and I started giving him a lecture, you know, but I just said, I just know so many kids who get in trouble, but that shocked me. And that's just the iceberg, right?
And Ellen, you think about a couple of things here. One, 10 years ago, this was all illegal.
Right.
Right. So it has come from being in the shadows, being something people did with bookies in the illicit market, right? To something where during a typical broadcast, if you watch a sports event, you are going to see hundreds of brand impressions and spots featuring major celebrities that are, you know, pushing people to sign up and get special, you know, odds boosts or promotions. It's just become normalized so quickly. And for the young generation, you know, this started with this daily fantasy sports about 10 years ago. And that's really what started normalizing it. And for someone who's 21 now, that started when they were 11, 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So they've been through this as a normal thing, this gambling on sports ever since they were little, whenever they watch sports on TV. And people aren't just betting on the Phillies game, like I'm going to bet on the Phillies to win, or, you know, they're going to bet on the speed of every pitch.
Oh,
they're going to bet on every aspect. And this is the real pernicious thing about this kind of online sports gambling, is that it involves something called micro bets.
Right, within an inning they bet on things, or within a whatever.
Right, within an inning there can be dozens of different wagers made possible. They're all generated through artificial intelligence, and they're delivered to specific users based on all of the information that they've gathered based on their usage history. So they know that user X, who is a 21-year-old college kid, is going to bet on this kind of event, and so it's going to offer constantly bets, or maybe even sweeten bets on particular micro events within these contests. So within any game, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of potential wagers. They're all created through artificial intelligence, and you know, we're just not equipped. Our brains don't work well enough, fast enough to do this in a way that makes any sense. That's rational.
But imagine high school kids' brains.
High school kids, and they're getting flooded with dopamine with this, and that is what creates the possibility for an addiction. And I think Dr. Levant, who treats folks with a gambling disorder.
Dr. Levant, I keep calling you Harry, so you're Harry to me, but Dr. Levant, I like that.
Harry is fine.
We're friends, so I have to call him Dr. Levant.
You have to give him his props that he's a doctor.
It's nice. Well, I'm a doctor of law and public policy. I'm a master's in counseling.
But Harry, you've lived this. Your story is so emotional, right? You've hit rock bottom.
Now, Ellen, I am more than happy to talk about my story. I'm very open with my story. As a therapist, I don't believe in the concept of rock bottom. It can always get worse.
You're right.
Happy to discuss that. But before I do, there are a couple of points I want to expand from where Mark left off.
Okay.
A moment ago, in setting up the question, you used the word vice. This is not about a vice. Mark and I and
bigger than that.
Professor Daynard, we're not prohibitionists. We're not opposed to the properly regulated legalization of sports gambling. However, we are vehemently opposed to what has happened in this country in just 7 years. In particular, you see it in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, where so much of your audience is located where they are the two states that have had online sports gambling the longest. They both got it in 2018 and 2019. Understand, we are talking not about a vice. We're talking about a known addictive product. Science has known for more than 12 years that gambling is an addictive product, and gambling disorder is an addiction just like heroin and opioids and tobacco, alcohol, and cocaine. However, with this particular addictive product, it is being delivered at light speed without any guardrails. As Mark said, through the use of artificial intelligence. In my hand, I have a sports book at a casino with non-stop action. With every other addictive product, government seeks to regulate the advertising, the distribution, the promotion, and consumption of the product. Why? To protect public health. It makes sense. With gambling, the exact opposite is happening. State government has become a financial partner with an industry that is now delivering an addictive product in ways that no one thought about 7 years ago when this got started. Mark started to discuss micro betting. You can literally bet on everything and anything conceivable within every game or match or sporting event. And Mark mentioned the human brain. Let's talk about our target audience here today. The human brain, the risk-reward system for a young man doesn't fully form until you're 26 years old.
26,
So government, in partnership with sports, media, gambling companies, and technology, has unleashed on young men a known addictive product in ways we never thought of. The only thing that can happen there is harm, as day follows night. What we're doing here at PHAI under Mark's leadership is working for comprehensive public health regulation to make this product safer.
Remind us of the acronym. What is that? PHAI?
PHAI. We are the Public Health Advocacy Institute.
Okay. And we'll give all the information at the end. You'll give us all your websites and everything. But it is astounding to me, too, that, you know, so many of these young men and they all these websites, they know what they're doing, right? They think, oh, these guys know they're good and they think they all know sports, right? They get them hooked through the sports apps. But really their goal, Harry, isn't it, is to get them hooked on the casino apps, because that's the really quick way. That's the really quick way that these guys lose money.
You know, Ellen,
it's the adrenaline. And sadly, I know this because I know people close to me who are addicts, and it's, you know, I don't want to get emotional, but it's scary.
It always was that way. As Mark was describing, sports betting, it used to be, you know, the very first state-sponsored legal sports bet in this country was made by Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey.
What?
In June of 2019, Governor Murphy made a $20 bet on the New Jersey Devils. I think I said 2009. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
In June of 2018, Governor Phil Murphy, New Jersey, made the first state-sponsored legalized sports bet in the United States when Governor Murphy bet $20 on the New Jersey Devils to win the 2019 Stanley Cup, a bet that would take 11 months to decide. Now, just 7 years later, these products deliver action every 11 seconds or faster. So what has actually happened, they have turned sports into the equivalent of a nonstop slot machine. Right. So the difference between sports betting and casino betting, they're really one and the same now. The action never stops. And when we talk about harm occurs long before people become addicted. The public health movement is trying to prevent that harm from ever occurring in the first place. The gambling industry preaches what they call the responsible gaming model, where they put money at treatment after the person has fallen in the river.
Right.
What Mark and I are doing, we're trying to build guardrails into the system so people don't suffer that harm in the first place. We don't want people falling in the river in the first place.
My favorite is when really they say gambling problem, call 1-800 or whatever. And I don't mean to make light of it, but it's comical to me when they have that number on the ads, right? Gambling problem, call 1-800. I laugh to myself.
Well, it's an indication that, you know, most states require them to run that. And it's part of this responsible gaming model that the industry has used as a form of basically self-regulation.
Like cover yourself.
But all of that is geared towards people who have already suffered great harm. And sort of the paradigm shift from responsible gaming to a comprehensive public health approach is all about understanding that the guardrails are needed to prevent that harm from happening in the first place. And Harry and I love sports. And, I think that there's an entertainment value in sports gambling to a certain extent, right? But when these products are being delivered the way they are, when they've turned sports gambling really into this nonstop slot machine, complex slot machine with all these lines moving rapidly, that's not the same thing. And that's the kind of product using micro betting and in-game parlays that is definitely going to continue to cause greater and greater harm. And so the harm is going to be economic because people lose their jobs, they lose their housing opportunities, they lose their education opportunities, they lose their relationships. And for everyone who is in this downward spiral caused by these products, there are people in their lives who are also hurt. There are the affected or impacted others, right? That are also hurt, who may not gamble at all, but they've lost their life savings. They've lost their homes as well. And, it's really this pernicious cycle that gets started, and it gets started faster and faster as the action goes faster and faster and is available 24/7. Harry, right now, there may not be a baseball game going on right now, but there is ping pong going on in Eastern Europe, and you can bet on every game, on every serve. There's a shuttlecock somewhere.
What are you showing us, Harry? What is that?
For badminton.
What Mark is describing, I don't have an account for obvious reasons. I made my last bet on April 27, 2014.
God bless you.
I do not have an account, but I am able, with 2 clicks of my thumb, to enter DraftKings and FanDuel, Caesars, Fanatics, and ESPN Bet and MGM sportsbooks. I am inside the sportsbook. A 9-year-old can do that.
Oh,
and Ellen, we're recording.
My 10-year-old niece could do it in a second. Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're recording this, Ellen, at 11:47 a.m. on a gorgeous Monday in July. If you were sitting at your desk, as I am, at 11:41 in the morning, and you were betting on every serve in a ping pong match from the Czech Republic, which is what's on my screen right now, you'll meet the definition of a gambling problem.
Yeah.
These products are not designed for entertainment.
No.
They're designed for constant action.
And can I just say something out? Because this is really important for people who may not understand this. As we mentioned, it's not just somebody who is in trouble with money, and it's not just somebody with, people might say, oh, I can't even imagine declaring bankruptcy or losing my house. These people who are addicts, they're sinking into depression when it's mental health issues, right? And it affects so many people around them. And this is what I want people to understand, who maybe say, oh, it's money. It's not. This is mental health issues. These are people who are getting sick because they literally are sick to their stomachs. I have a really good friend whose husband is a compulsive gambler, and he's sick. It manifests itself in physical illness.
Ellen, it's important. Ellen, it's very important for me as a therapist to step in and just change a little bit of the language you're using, if I may.
No, and I know, but I just want you to know that this is what the average people, how we talk. And all you can, Harry.
and it's important as part of reducing stigma.
Yeah,
language matters. So people are not addicts. People are not sick. Your friend's husband. People struggle with an addiction. This is he's getting physically sick, physically sick from the emotional issues that's surrounding his gambling. He's getting physically sick. Yeah. I want your audience, particularly anyone who might be struggling or know someone who is struggling, the three most courageous words you can use in mental health are, I need help.
Yeah.
So to help people seek that help, we need to recognize the product is designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
If you are suffering, this doesn't mean you are a bad or irresponsible person or you lack judgment. You are struggling with a mental
sickness, right?
Called addiction, and treatment is available. And I'm a clinician, I treat people. But as a result of my lived experience, I have the privilege to work with Professor Gottlieb, Professor Daynard, and our team here at PHAI, because the best form of treatment is prevention. So if you are somebody who is struggling, reach out for help and learn more about, for others, learn more about the work we're doing at PHAI, because what we're trying to do is make this product safer. Am I correct, Mark?
But don't you think people are embarrassed? Especially
right. The stigma around this is extraordinary. And tragically, this is why of all of the addictions, gambling disorder has the highest suicide ideation and suicide completion rate.
Really?
Yes. And, you know, the way that I think the responsible gaming model that the industry has puts the onus on the individual, solely and squarely on the individual. The individual who's struggling with these products is defective, not the products. They're not defective. Well, I think it's the other way around. I think these are products that are defective, that are hurting people. And I think once we understand that that's what's going on, it's hopefully going to help remove some of that stigma. This needs to be denormalized.
So what kind of
not just gambling, but the way that these products are being designed to addict young people.
So what kind of words should we use, Harry?
We're dealing with people, human beings who are struggling with gambling disorder. I don't want to label them with the label of gambling addict. They are husbands and wives, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
So if a person who is listening to what Mark just said is struggling, it's important to point this out, is struggling with thoughts of self-harm, pick up your phone and call 988. It's the suicide prevention hotline. You can text 988. 988. Call 988. So anyone for any mental health reason finds themselves struggling with thoughts of self-harm, you pick up that phone or you call 988. Help is available. But as far as the words for people who are listening, if you are struggling, understand you're not alone. Help is available. Treatment is available. And there is a pathway to recovery. That's the hat I wear as a clinician. As a public health advocate, speaking to a much wider audience, using the appropriate language and recognizing this is not about your friend or family member being a bad person or being irresponsible. This is about an addictive product designed to get people hooked. This is machine against the public. And right now,
rigged against people, right? It's so easy. It's so easy. Right?
It is a system where all of the following are working in concert: the gambling companies, the world's largest media companies, the AI and technology companies, the sports leagues, teams, owners, and players, right down to the players, the NCAA, and state government itself have all come together to deliver an addictive product in ways the human brain can't handle. That's the reality.
The more all of those entities share in the losses / profits.
I feel so sorry for the young men today. You can't be at a bar. My daughter will tell me she'll be at a bar and the guys are constantly on their phones looking at the scores, and she knows it's for the gambling, and she said her guy friends are all hooked on gambling. I mean, it's really.
They're doing that in the bar, Ellen, and they're also doing it when they're back at home. They're doing it when they're in the bathroom. They're doing it sitting on the couch.
Isolating, right?
It's happening all the time. Yeah, that's a social situation. But most of this happens in isolation, and that's when I think the anxiety, the depression, the feelings of helplessness because you've lost autonomy begin to really take their toll.
And, a lot of these, I said, okay, what things we can do about it? We started to ask the
What
question.
can average people do? Like I said, I'm very close to it because I know people, and I know because I have a son who is in college and knows all these people and know all these kids who do it constantly. It's not just casual. Like, I don't think people who don't have young men in college don't understand how ubiquitous, I keep using that word.
Yeah.
But what can people
It almost
do?
doesn't capture it. Ubiquitous, pervasive. It's everywhere.
Keep saying it's just like how everywhere. It's just insidious. It's just
Let's focus on younger adults in college just for a minute.
okay.
They're obviously, this is impacting a much wider population. But you, in your question, wanted to focus on that for just a minute.
Yes.
I recently had to hospitalize a college student patient who lost over $70,000 within 3 months of their 21st birthday and was struggling with suicidal ideation. This same college,
I have a visceral reaction. Yeah.
this same college student worked a part-time job, making $8.50 an hour, working 20 hours a week.
I'll never get
do the math. I'll do the math. That's making $200 a week.
Mm-hmm.
How can government permit an industry whose business model, because of the way math works, gambling companies make money. The house always wins. How can state government permit an industry to market and distribute a known addictive product in such a way that the gambling companies are allowed to take $71,000 from a 21-year-old person who only makes $200 a week? So Mark and I are working for reform on many levels. We are very privileged to work with Congressman Paul Tonko from New York, Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, and others for what's called the Safe Bet Act, pending in Washington, D.C. We could do an entire podcast just on the Safe Bet Act.
10-hour documentary. Yeah, this is.
But one of the common sense regulations in the Safe Bet Act is our affordability checks. That's not the government telling people how to spend their money.
Right.
It's the government putting regulation on an industry that is marketing an addictive product and says, wait a minute, if a person wants to gamble more than $1,000 a night or $10,000 in a month, the gambling industry has the responsibility to run an affordability check just like a bank would before they loaned a similar amount of money on an unsecured loan. We do it with banks. We do it with car loans. We do it with credit cards. We do affordability checks. There's no such thing with the gambling industry. That's just one idea.
Is it getting big resistance in Congress?
It is
Congress
getting
has been distracted with some other stuff lately. I don't know. It may not have gotten the attention yet that it is due to get.
What I'm saying, I can imagine the pushback would be
state legislators with similar kinds of proposals. We have one, the Better Health Act in Massachusetts, filed by Senator John Keenan, that takes some of these parts of the Safe Bet Act from the congressional legislation and applies them to states. And I think, we're going to need more states to try to come in and say, this isn't quite what we thought it was going to be when we gave it the green light several years ago. And now we need to put up some of those guardrails so that, the young man that Harry was describing, who has lost $60,000 and, for every reason under the sun, the company that's taking that money should have known that this kid had no way of
repay it, right?
Of depositing and losing that much. We need sensible legislation and regulation. So we're working with legislators and regulators. We're also working in the courts, and we're trying to call out some of the more predatory practices from these online gambling companies, and representing either classes or individuals of folks who have been harmed, and using the courts to not only address that harm, but also using the discovery process in litigation to find out kind of what they knew and when they knew it, and how they went about designing these products and their promotions, which I think are absolutely predatory. And hopefully that can also inform the legislative and regulatory process moving forward. And then, and I'll let Harry describe this. We are working to create a new organization for those folks who weren't gambling, who have suffered harm, those affected or impacted others.
But that's the key word there. Then, Harry, you pick up, it's predatory. It's one thing to say it's capitalism. You can do whatever you want, right? You can spend money however you want. It's the predatory aspect of it.
Known addictive product, Ellen, right? So you treat it a little differently than you treat, something else in the marketplace, like selling TVs or laptops.
Right. Harry?
We're not trying to end sports gambling.
Right.
And by the way, with sports gambling and gambling-related harm that people suffer, it's not about the money. It's about the action.
Right.
What's drawing people in is the way this product makes them feel. And for someone who's struggling, winning in many ways is worse than losing. When they're winning, they may have to stop. But when they're losing, there's more and more and more action to chase. And when they get into that chase, harm occurs. And the business model is to get people chasing more and more action, as Mark has been talking about. So
it's a flood of neurochemicals.
Yeah.
It's the
high, right? I get it. Yeah.
It's the dopamine, not the dough, that's driving this. And it's important that your audience knows I am no longer a lawyer. I'm a former lawyer. I take my sanctions very seriously. I don't practice law, but I do practice advocacy as a public health advocate. I'm out on the road many weeks a year talking to organizations. I'll be at St. Joe's University for a big conference on August 6th, talking about this, spreading word for people who want to be involved in the public health movement. We are soon to launch an organization called FOG, Families and Friends of Gamblers. And we're going to lift the fog off of how the gambling industry preys upon vulnerable people. How we're going to do it? We're going to bring in the families and the friends of people who are suffering harm. None of those folks presently are counted. You hear the gambling industry say, it's less than 1% of people who ever struggle with gambling. That statistic is categorically wrong. Categorically.
It affects so many, the tentacles, right?
The tentacles extend everywhere. First of all, far more than 1% of people are struggling with a gambling problem.
I believe
Recent research is showing as many as 10 to 12% and as many as 16 to 20% of younger adults. However, beyond that, keep in mind two things. Number one, why do we know that the gambling industry statistics are wrong? Because we only count the people who fall in for help. We don't know how much harm is occurring. No one in the industry is looking for it. And secondly, those gambling industry statistics don't count all the impacted others. And there's overwhelming evidence that tells us for each person who's struggling with a gambling problem, 8 to 10 other people in their orbit are also suffering harm. At PHAI, through our new organization, FOG, we are going to give a voice to all of those impacted others. We are guided by the expertise and the genius, frankly, of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We're going to create and support FOG for Families and Friends of Gamblers. And at the end, we'll give the website for PHAI so people can contact Mark or me, and we'll give them more information.
Yeah, because this is where it's headed, right? I mean, so much change has happened with people who struggle with drinking, right, and drugs, and I think so much more needs to be told and learn, and people need to learn so much more about gambling. And you both are doing so much good, and I want to thank you both and for the wonderful work you're doing just to get the word out there. And can you both help us find you and plug away? Where can we find you? Please give us some information, give us your website, and we'll have a link to that also when we have the website.
Sure, it's pretty easy, Ellen. It's phai.org.
Okay. What else? I know you can plug something else.
I can also be reached at my own website, which is harrylevant.com.
All right. Any last words that we can sum up? I mean, there's so much. We could do 5 hours, but What else? Any last word you both can say on this?
I have one. I have one for you, then I'll give Mark the last word. I mentioned earlier we're privileged to work with our friend and colleague and mentor, Professor Richard Daynard, who decades ago brought the public health approach to big tobacco. And at that time, people pointed out to Professor Daynard that he was David versus Goliath. This was impossible. We're hearing those same things again. And I was talking to Professor Daynard about this the other day. This is his quote. I'm just going to share it with your audience. Professor Daynard says we're hearing the same thing all over again. We're David versus Goliath with the gambling industry. With a little look in his eye, Professor Daynard said to me, yeah, but don't bet against us. And he's right.
That's also, that is great.
And I'll just say that, these are really challenging times for states. And I think there are some structural financial changes happening that is going to increasingly put pressure on states to find money somehow to plug the holes in their budgets, which are going to get bigger and bigger just because of the way things have unfolded in recent months. And there's so much pressure to try to find that money from leveraging the addictions of citizens of those states. And that's just the wrong approach. To a certain extent, it can be done. It can be done in a way that, creates less harm. But the way it's being pushed by the gambling industry at the state level right now is that they're going to come in like a knight in shining armor and provide all of this money. The harm that is being left in the wake of this is just starting to be understood. And I just hope that, and this is why there's some urgency to what we're doing at PHAI. We need to get the word out. We need to help legislators and policymakers make this paradigm shift and to better understand that it's not a few odd people who already have problems who are getting hurt, that everybody is at risk from these products. And it's not just them, it's the friends and the family of those gamblers as well. We've got to make these changes happen quickly.
Quickly. I mean, these are friends and families and sons and daughters that are being ripped apart. I mean, this is a real problem, but you two are doing amazing work and I can't thank you enough. And God bless you for doing God's work. I'll say it again. I mean, really helping so many families. So I want to thank both of you, Harry Levant and Mark Gottlieb, for doing so much work to help people. So thank you for being here. I so appreciate both of you. And thank you all for joining us today on the ECKO Effect. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and please check out my website, ECKO. Well, my website is ECKO Communications. That's my company, but my website is eccocom.com. Thank you for being here. What an emotional day and what an emotional topic for so many people, but make it a great day. Thank you.